and our partners, it is my privilege to welcome you to this session spotlighting the global mission on AI for energy. Today's session brings together global leadership to discuss what could become one of the most consequential missions of this decade. To formally open the session, I invite Mr. Karan Mangotra, Chief of Strategy and New Initiatives, International Solar Alliance, to deliver the welcome address.
Good evening, everyone. Will AI overwhelm our grids or will it optimize them? Will solar remain underutilized or will it be intelligently orchestrated across rooftop, substations, and markets? Will this transition be centralized and exclusive or decentralized and citizen-driven? These were the questions of why we began this journey. A few years ago, the conversation was simple. Deploy more solar, and we did. The world added record levels of solar capacity, roughly around 400 gigawatt in a single year. Costs fell, ambitions rose, and the solar revolution took hold. But as solar scaled, systems grew more complex. Rooftop panels multiplied, distribution networks became bidirectional. Electric vehicles and storage entered the grid. Now, at the same time, AI surged. Powerful, energy intensive, yet transformative. Now, what we realized was something very fundamental, that AI needs energy, but energy systems also need AI. And if we shape this convergence well, the future is extraordinarily promising. Now, imagine grids that anticipate stress before it happens, distribution networks that self-optimize, and rooftop solar aggregated intelligently, peer-to-peer markets empowering citizens, and cleaner power driving smarter economies. Now, it's not just about technology for its own sake, it's about reliability, affordability, and resilience for people. Now, at the International Solar Alliance, a Global South-anchored intergovernmental body, we are committed to ensure that this transformation is inclusive. AI-enabled energy systems are deployed not only in advanced markets, but where the demand is rising the fastest and the impacts matter most. Through practical, use case-driven collaboration, we are moving from ideas to implementation. Now, on behalf of the ISA, I would like to sincerely thank the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Ministry of Power, Rural Electrification Corporation, and FSR Global for their leadership and partnership on this. I would also like to acknowledge the ISA Multi-Donor Trust Fund partners, GIAP, and our knowledge partner, Systemic, for helping us shape this important initiative. Most importantly, I would like to thank and welcome all our distinguished panelists and participants for being a part of this journey. So we began all of this with solar deployment, but today we stand at the intersection of solar and AI. And the future, if we design it well, is intelligent, inclusive, and deeply citizen-centric. So welcome you all and look forward to an engaging session.
Thank you, Mr. Mangotra, for setting the tone and reminding us why this movement demands collective leadership. As we move from vision to architecture, this next segment of our session highlights a key enabler, the India Energy Stack. Let's begin by watching a short explainer video.
India is on a journey toward a developed 2047 Viksit Bharat, an ambitious goal that needs not just more electricity, but smarter electricity. For decades, the grid was simple. Big power plants sent energy one way to homes and businesses that paid for consumption. But today, the grid is alive with millions of moving parts. Solar panels on roofs, wind farms, electric vehicles, batteries, smart meters, and smart appliances. So, as India grows, the challenge is not generating power. It's helping these parts coordinate in real time. This gets complex. Let's break it down. Meet Rani. She runs a small catering business from her home kitchen. Her family has rooftop solar and an EV scooter. Rani wants 4 simple things: power she can afford, power she can rely on, bills she can understand, and options that let her benefit from the energy she produces. Today, this experience is fragmented for everyone. Joining a new energy program means paperwork, manual checks, and long waits. Data is locked in different systems. Services struggle to connect to the grid. This is the coordination gap that we need to solve for. To bridge this gap, India is building India Energy Stack. IES is digital public infrastructure for electricity. Think of it as a network of digital highways that allow all utilities, service providers, consumers, and even devices to communicate and work with each other securely. IES is built using foundational building blocks that can be used to build energy services: identity and addressability, registries and directories, interaction protocols, energy credentials, and policy as code. What does this change? For utilities and system operators, it enables faster problem solving, better planning, and lower costs because everyone can finally talk to each other. For regulators, stronger oversight with clear data, transparent reporting, better decision making. For innovators, a bigger opportunity. Startups can build new energy services without starting from scratch every time. And for Rani, real empowerment. She's no longer just paying for power, she's earning from it. She gets paid fairly for her extra solar energy, charges her EV smoothly, understands her bills, and gets help quickly when she needs it. IES opens the door to this kind of energy agency and livelihoods at scale. Imagine women-led groups in small villages and local entrepreneurs across the country delivering trusted energy services to their communities. IES is not just a piece of technology. It is the foundation for coordination, trust, and reliability on a national scale. It creates a cleaner, more reliable power system where electricity becomes not just a cost, but an avenue for livelihoods and empowerment. One nation, one frequency, now one digital grid. India Energy Stack, an initiative by the Ministry of Power. Built in India for the world.
To help deepen our understanding, I now invite Ms. Shweta Ravikumar, Executive Director, FSR Global, to please make her presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm Shweta, I head FSR Global, and I'm going to unpack some elements of the video that you just saw. So it's an absolute privilege to be opening on the Indian Energy Stack at a global forum at this session. So let's just rewind back. India in 2014 was at the same crossroads trying to transform the banking sector. And today the energy sector is at the same crossroads. What does this mean? Back in 2014 as well, India had banks, it had phones, it had a lot of money that was transacting, but it did not have a common digital rail to connect them all. Then UPI happened. It was not a new bank that the government came up with. It was not a new app either. It was a simple protocol that unleashed the power of a 2 trillion digital payment economy today, competing with the likes of the Visas and the Masters across the world. So this is the unlock that a simple digital public infrastructure approach can enable at the world level. So coming to the power sector, we currently have all of these different moving parts, be it a rooftop solar owner in Jaipur, or an EV startup or a CPO in Bangalore, or an energy regulator who wants to make sure it's consumer-centric plans are being made in Chennai, or a cooperative in rural Maharashtra. All of them use different systems and interact with a different set of stakeholders. we are now enabling through IES the common digital rails for them to communicate with each other in a seamless way. So the sector is now ready to connect. So what does this mean? For all of us who are in the sector, we know that there is a lot of deployment in terms of SCADA systems, smart meters. India is planning to connect 300 million households through smart meters. But all of these different systems have its own unique language that they interact with. Interoperability does exist, but it is not in a seamless way that we would be able to extract at the scale that we're talking in the case of India. So here, how can we move from siloed to more shared information? How can you have interoperability at the heart of design so that you make that seamless interactions possible and create an ecosystem that allows for innovation to scale up all of these leapfrogs that we are envisioning for the sector? So this is where IES comes in as a trust bridge. Let's look at some of the examples that are more closer to all of us in our day-to-day lives. For instance, how if every meter, a solar panel, or an EV charger had a verified digital identity, much like how all of us as citizens of this country have Aadhaar, which was a DPI. Again, if an app can discover, transact, or settle energy services across utilities, say we move from one city to another, that would be very similar to the UPI that we have today, that we also generously use on a day-to-day basis. I don't think so any of us carry cash anymore in our wallets. If there are anyone, you can raise your hand. For regulators, how can they write and make evidence-based decision-making more easily, much like how GST unified the country through a more centralized and federated way of going about this? Likewise, if you want to have prosumers, like we saw in the case of Rani in the video before, wants to sell her surplus power and exchange it with another customer from within her city or beyond in another state, then you have other DPIs like ONDC, which will facilitate for this. So India Energy Stack is not either Aadhaar, UPI, ONDC, or GST. It's all of the above. So it's nothing but a set of protocols and specifications that enable for this interaction to happen in a trustworthy manner. What it essentially does is it gives us a common language, a taxonomy, a data model that machines and humans alike can understand, and to help us scale solutions from pilot to actual implementation across the country. So how is this being done? When we say a digital public infrastructure, it's not a monolithic solution that is being developed to be deployed across the ecosystem. It's built on foundational building blocks. So think of this a bit like Lego bricks that you're trying to put together to make whatever that is that you're building as that particular stakeholder. So as of now, it's work in progress for us as the team. It's about 6 months old that this concept is in various forms of iteration. But we have 5 building blocks here: identity and addressing, so that we recognize each other, be it a system or a person; registries and directories, which is like a lookup table for information to exchange across multiple systems; interaction protocols. The power system already has a lot of protocols that's being used, but if you want to bring in new services, how do you sort of make the old meet the new? And how do you sort of bind them together? You have energy credentials, as the video was also mentioning. How can I make, like something like eKYC, how do I make my onboarding as a consumer into the utility ecosystem more seamless, be it a commercial consumer or a residential consumer? And what if we can codify all of the policy that we all engage with on a daily basis? It could be for a utility to look at, to understand what tariff applies to which consumer, or it could be for researchers to understand how do you bring in the next kind of policy intervention to work with the policymakers. So if we can codify a lot of the policy, it becomes easy for us to scale and enable analytics over and above that. This is where the AI unlock happens. What IES will do, because of its standard data models and organizing information in a common way, would allow for the data that is needed for AI to be able to become that intelligence layer on top to give any of us whatever questions we may have. It could be a grid operator asking for what should be the reliability or flexibility measures that they need to keep in mind, or it could simply be me as a consumer trying to understand my own behavior, or it could be for policymakers or businesses to know where do I park my money and how do I make those investments. So basically, IES would act as that bedrock over which AI can literally unlock AI agents for $1 billion. And that is what we intend to demonstrate in 2 days from now and continue to do so through the many months and years. And not just that, we as a country are now moving away from the conversation on energy access to energy agency, because we are democratizing power here. That means self-help groups can now invest into decentralized systems and participate as an active participant in the ecosystem. College students can become part of the solution building, because we're opening up the innovation ecosystem through accelerators. Or the agrarian society, the farmers, can now participate in offering flexibility and in demand response by simply adjusting some of their consumption patterns. So IES unlocks micro-entrepreneurs and livelihoods at a scale of $1 billion. And so consumers are now becoming participants, passive becomes active, and access becomes agency. And that's the vision that we have at the India Energy Stack. So with that, this is the idea that we would love to give built in India for the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Shweta, for that very insightful overview of how digital public infrastructure can translate ambition into scalable systems. Now, moving on to the core conversation of this session, a fireside chat titled From Vision to a Citizen-Centric AI Mission. It is my pleasure to invite our distinguished speakers, Mr. Hemang Jani, Senior Advisor to the Executive Director for India, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka World Bank, Mr. Henry Verdier, Director General, INRIA Foundation. Please join us on stage, sir. Mr. J.V.N. Subramaniam, Joint Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India, and the chair for this segment, Mr. Ashish Khanna, Director General, International Solar Alliance. A big round of applause, please. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Aarti. A very warm welcome to all of you and to this distinguished panel. I will begin by saying three broad aspects just to introduce. First, a lot of you might be thinking, why is International Solar Alliance talking about India Energy Stack and AI for energy? The answer is very simple. The world did 1,000 gigawatt of solar in just last 2 years. 45% of that was decentralized renewable energy, which means either on the rooftop or on the pumps. And while India has achieved 150 gigawatts of cumulative, only 15% is currently decentralized, which means India will see a huge quantum leap in solar rooftops, solar pumps, PM Kusum, PM Suryaghar, and a whole host of decentralized renewable energy. Now, a lot of distribution companies believe it creates more problems for them if you have a lot of solar rooftop, which actually may not be true, as we will experience in the session today. And therefore, we believe in International Solar Alliance, having digitization and AI is absolutely foundational element for doing a lot more solar. Second, while a lot of you, if you are in the sector, would have seen the data center demand and therefore what are the energy requirements for AI. Now that is true for a lot of countries, especially in the West, and it's not a trivial matter, but for developing countries, the real game changer might be AI for energy, which means what are the AI applications that will fundamentally transform the way energy sector is dealt, as you saw in India Energy Stack presentation. Because what you saw is what Amazon did to retail would happen exactly the same way in energy. In 5 years from now, millions of people buying and selling power. And finally, as intertwining of AI and energy is going to happen, it is very important to have a framework, which is what we are here today for in terms of our overall global AI mission, which kind of a utility, which kind of an organization should be aspiring for what, and therefore there should be a framework for you have to do this in step 1, this in step 2. So all these 3 elements is what ISA is here for. And since I have a great set of panel, I'm going to begin. I'll start with you, Hemang. Hemang is not only a senior advisor in Indian ED's office, he has worked very closely on Capacity Building Commission, Prime Minister's Office, Government of Gujarat, and World Bank as well. So Hemang, you have seen it from an Indian level and the global angle. Tell us a little bit, what do you think needs to be done to accelerate the adoption of AI? Especially it has a lot of cross-sectoral elements, both digital and energy coming together, but also the way this interoperability and products of technical assistance and lending as you look at the World Bank. What will be your perspective?
So thank you, Ashish. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me and gathering such a stellar set of people. It itself is an honor, but let us also begin by thanking Honorable Prime Minister for bringing the AI summit here. After France, in maybe 3 months or 6 months, we are sitting here with the AI summit. It's a big thing. When I sit in Washington, D.C., and I tell people that I'm going to AI summit and it's in India, and they all get surprised because nobody had thought of it. So we have to thank him, and thanks to REC and ISA, because you are sitting here in this hall on the very first day when the Honorable Prime Minister is inaugurating the summit. So that's a big thing for this audience, this hall. Let me begin to answer your question by answering Sweta's question. I still query cash, but only outside India. Not in India. So that is, in nutshell, needs to change for AI, for energy, for the globe. If we can stop carrying cash outside India, we have changed it. Let me begin by what we look at it from DC at the bank. We have around 700 million people to be connected by 2030 to electricity. We at the bank have a mission of connecting 300 million only in Africa, the continent Africa. But if we want to do that, as I saw in one of the presentations, India is going to add 300 million new customers with smart meters. Let me put it in a different way. India is going to add 300 million intelligent customers to the grid. So while the rest of the world will add 300 customers, we will add 300 intelligent customers. And that is what AI can do. So unless we look at AI not as a technology, particularly for energy sector, but as a development infrastructure itself, the way we look at the grid, the way we look at discoms, and the way we look at meters, we have to look at AI, that it is also one of the infrastructure layer that we need to create simultaneously. And that is where I think the game will change. Another aspect to it is, what AI cannot do is AI cannot bring the fiscal prudence, AI cannot bring the governance reforms, AI cannot bring all those things. But AI can enable a lot of those things. So if you are worried about your losses, and that is what is the biggest contributing factor to your fiscal issues, then AI can immediately come in and help you. So how do we look at AI as a problem solver for the problems which are non-technical in nature? That also is very important part of it. And the third and the important part is what I will borrow from our senior colleague from Jaipur. She said, we don't think in terms of pilots. So you can't think of in terms of pilots when you are talking about a technology like AI. You have to think big, you have to think at scale, and that is what IES is trying to do. And to end my intervention, what Shweta mentioned about IES, that it is going to become another banking kind of a technology, I think we should not think that small, we should think even bigger than that. We shouldn't just stop being a Finacle. We should become the Google of AI for energy for the world. And that is what AI for energy or AI or IES for energy for the world would mean. So thanks again.
No, thank you so much, Hemang. Indeed, the global AI mission for energy is indeed that level of ambition. Let me go to Henry. Henry, thank you so much for joining. You are not only been a French ambassador for digital affairs, but also DG of a leading research agency. Tell us a little bit, you mentioned very clearly that you're much more of an AI person than energy. When you hear this big push of trying to bring energy and AI together, what's your reaction on what will it take to create this ecosystem of interoperability, stack for payments, and citizen-centric approach?
Thank you. Very happy to be in India again, even if I'm not anymore an ambassador. We need to work hard to build proper ecosystems, but we need open standards, ecosystems, and good regulation if we want to win this thing. But first I want to recall, you know this, but I will say it from a digital perspective. The energy transition is accelerating everywhere, as you said. Our power systems are becoming more and more complex, with more renewable energy, more decentralization, higher expectation for resilience from citizens, from businesses, from governments. I believe that artificial intelligence might be the only way to shift to our prioritizing renewable energies. We cannot build a new system in the old organization. So we must use it, but we also must remember that innovation is not always a progress, and that sometimes, especially in the field of digital, it did turn bad. We have bad experience with social network, for example. The AI didn't play a good role, the uncontrolled AI. We did start with open and genuine and decentralized network, but some people took control, putting companies on the top of those infrastructure. So we have to learn some lessons from this. I want to add, before answering briefly to your question, France comes to this conversation with a third objective. We want the digital revolution and the environmental transition to move forward together, and that's very important. So I don't know if you know, but in France, in 2021, we did adopt a law specifically aimed at reducing the environmental footprint of the digital sector. Because, of course, there is a growing issue regarding the cost, the consumption of AI, and we have to invest fiercely to... You did see the IEA report noting that AI could represent a meaningful share of global electricity demand soon, in 2030. So we should ensure that the AI for energy does not unintentionally create a new stress on power systems. So just to mention this, that's why France helped to launch with India the International Sustainable AI Coalition during the Paris Summit, and we expect to go further during this impressive summit. I did mention this because if we come back to your question, I told you open standards, ecosystems, and regulation. Open standards are the heart of the digital revolution itself. Everything is based on TCP/IP, HTML, and other open standards, and that's not a coincidence. With open standards, first you share innovation everywhere. Because you don't have to spend time and money to make money, you can decrease the return on invest, and you can encourage a lot of innovation. And of course, people don't notice, usually. You give a strategic possibility to everyone to cooperate and to discover much more efficient way. I don't go further because I think that Sujit and the experience of the Indian digital grid will go further to this. But when you have open standards, you need big, extensive ecosystems with a huge variety of actors. They will, if you pay attention to the history of humankind, you don't have any example of anything important that was not within a very diverse and vibrant ecosystem, with this important concept of co-opetition. For example, in Bangalore, they all want to build the next DPI. So they do cooperate, they do exchange, they do share views, but they also want to be the one. So this is an example of cooperation and competition, a co-opetition. But art, music, science, and industry, everything important was born in this kind of context. And if you don't have a strong ecosystem with you, you can be like Nokia, for example. They were the universal leader of phone, but they didn't find any idea to fight the smartphone, and they basically quite died. And now they come back because they didn't have enough energy, ideas, diversity to surround them. And the last point is about regulation, and I want to say sovereignty, because for us, people from the history of internet and digital revolution, we feel a bit cheated. We did work hard to propose a world of cooperation, knowledge, citizen empowerment, diversity, decentralization, and because of a failure of regulation, because we did misregulate, it's currently turning into few big tech companies trying to control all the network, including the submarine cables, because as you have seen, the last 3 years, 80% of the new submarine cables were built by the 5 GAFAM. So, and that's probably because we did miss one point when social network did appear. We did consider them as a passive infrastructure, and they were media with curation and promotion and a very active content curation. And because of this mistake, we have very strong actors that can oppose firmly to Europe, for example, as you can see easily. With AI, it could be worse. It could be worse because if you can take control of an ecosystem through AI, you can take all the added value. They can transform every industry into a kind of Uber driver. So you are still there, but you are just a servant of the system. And the only answer to fight this is to be sure, and I think that here, Europe, India, and even on a certain perspective, China are on the same line. We need enough open source AI model to be sure that everyone will be able to innovate without asking permission, public, private, small companies, innovators, etc. And we need a strong policies to encourage sectorial models for energy, for lawyers, for farmers, etc., to have a huge diversity of solutions. We cannot afford a world with 3 AI giants controlling every aspect of the economy. So again, open standards that are the bottom of everything, strong and diverse and vibrant ecosystem, and serious regulation, or we are working for 3 sociopathic billionaires. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So very clear messages. I like that concept of collaborate and compete at the same time. I think that's very good as part of ecosystem, and also the issues of concentration and interoperability. I think those are very clear messages, which you will see in a global AI mission. But let me come to Mr. Subramaniam. Mr. Subramaniam, you look after the entire distributed renewable energy program of India as part of Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Tell us a little bit of your experience, as India is now close to 3 million households, the target of 10 million. How are you seeing digitization and AI in terms of an essential piece?
Thank you, Ashish. Thanks for having me here. In fact, both of us have been together just a week's, 10 days back in Davos, and we have seen with our own eyes the scale and the speed at which India is implementing the distributed renewables has been amazing, and that is what we have presented to the globe. As you were rightly mentioning, the overall picture on renewables, let me put things in context. We are close to, as a country, we're close to almost about 500 gigawatts plus now, 520 gigawatts to be precise, and out of which almost 52% comes from the renewable sources, or the non-fossil sources to be precise, and out of which almost about 140 gigawatts come from solar. And within this entire piece, we're talking close to about 35 gigawatts of distributed renewables currently installed in the country. But the even more amazing part of it is that out of this, what we have done in the last 10 years and what we have done in the last 15 months, the last 15 months has added almost close to 18 gigawatts to the distributed renewable energy space, both under the Pradhan Mantri Suryagar Muft Bijli Yojana, which is the rooftop solarization program, one of the world's largest, and the Pradhan Mantri Kusum program, which is again the agriculture pump solarization program, again one of the world's largest. Between both the programs, we spent close to 9 billion USD on rooftop solarization and about $4 billion on the Kusum agriculture solarization. Now, what happened with this kind of a speed that is coming up on the distributed renewables? Of course, distributed renewables is something which we are going up in a big way. But where AI would help and the technologies would help, we have seen that with our own eyes in the Pradhan Mantri Suryaghar, where it's not that rooftops have not been installed in India in the last 10 years. They have been. But what has changed significantly? Why is that we could do almost 50% of what we have done in the last 10 years in the last 1 year is because of the technology solutions that we have incorporated. And the technology solutions have benefited the consumer, the people who are on the field, the vendors, the banks, and the discoms alike. So when you build a single portal, national portal, have all the stakeholders come onto it, so it adds that much of value and credence. Now, having said that, what AI is going to do, in fact, I'm sure what Shweta has presented in the India Energy Stack, it's going to be a game changer, especially for the DRE. One, because it has got all the elements of what an energy stack should do. It is not providing softwares, it is providing governance. Now, with our, what is that we are looking at from here to scale up DRE? DRE has scaled up and it is scaled up in a big way moving forward also. But where our challenge lies is on the distribution systems, where unidirectional flow of transformers are there, where millions of prosumers are now generating, where demand response becomes important, where the assets that are being developed across the country need to be maintained. Can we build in predictability into this? There are a lot of generators who require weather forecasting, predictive analytics. Can we get this onto the AI tool? Lastly, as a consumer, as a prosumer, whether I know is my rooftop system, is my solar pump generating enough when compared to my peers? Can I be able to sell my electricity to the other peers, which the P2P is trying to enable? So these are enabling decisions. So if you ask me what the AI is going to do in the future, it will not just make us act, it will not just make us react, but it will make us act. So that is the story that we are looking forward as far as DRE and the AI convergence is concerned. Yeah.
Thank you. Before I hand over back to Aarti, I'm actually going to ask a very quick one-sentence question to all three of you in the same order. There is incredible noise around AI, I feel. And it's very important to lead it to specificity. So my one-line question is, what would success in next 1 or 2 years on AI for energy should mean? Start with you, Hema.
See, I think this is a very fast-moving, evolving technology. So you shouldn't look for very early successes upfront. You should look for very long-term building of platforms, long-term building of infrastructure. For example, let me give you one example. International Solar Alliance. Honorable Prime Minister conceived it in 2014. Now it has 42 countries. It will have 80 countries in no time. And that is the digital public infrastructure for deploying AI to the world, right? So we should think in that long-term sense. So what is one layer that we can create from India and give to the world? That is how I look at it.
Okay. So we have 125 countries, but we need to go much bigger. Henry, what would success look like in next 1 or 2 years?
I think that we should prove that we are integrating as much renewable energies as possible in our grid, thanks to a much better gestion of the grid. Because I think you are the professional, but the renewable energies are less predictable, and you need much more provision, anticipation, control of the network. You cannot just add more solar system. So that's
Renewable
thanks to
energy
AI
integration.
that we can have a very significant proportion of.
Well, okay, very clear.
I think in the next 2 to 3 years' time, success in AI and the RE convergence would be where the overall cost of power to the consumers go down, our industrial competitiveness goes up, and consumer empowerment becomes a prosumer empowerment, and our grids become ready for energy transition. This is all what I would look like.
Wonderful. So with that, thank you very much. Please give a round of applause to this set of panel. We are going to have lots more people joining. Aarti, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, panelists, for that very rich and forward-looking discussion. And I request that you continue to stay on stage with us. We now move to a significant milestone for the evening, the launch of the report that lays the foundation for the global mission on AI for energy. To mark this launch, I request all our panelists to please join us on the stage. Ms. Aarti Dogra, Chairperson, Discoms and Managing Director, Jaipur Vidyut Vitran Nigam Limited. Mr. Abhishek Ranjan, CEO, BRPL. Mr. Sujit Nair, CEO and co-founder, FIDE. And Mr. Jeremy Oppenheim, Managing Partner, Systemic. While the panelists take their seats, we'll begin the segment with a video preview of the report.
The world is undergoing the fastest energy transformation in history. Renewables are scaling. Electricity demand is surging. Power systems are becoming more complex than ever before. But clean energy cannot scale without artificial intelligence. Without AI-enabled grids, the transition will slow, and the window to act is narrowing. Across the world, AI for energy efforts remain fragmented. Pilots, proofs of concept, isolated breakthroughs, but no coordinated backbone. Utilities face data silos. Regulators lack modern tools. Capital hesitates. Innovation moves, but not at the speed this decade demands. The latest ISA report makes a bold case. The world does not need more pilots. It needs a global mission for AI for energy. A citizen-centric mission to institutionalize delivery. To bring urgency and focus. To scale what works. To move from experimentation to execution. Because no single country and no single institution can do this alone. Under the leadership of the International Solar Alliance, representing over 120 countries, this mission will turn AI potential into measurable outcomes, faster renewables integration, lower system costs, greater reliability, stronger energy security. It will stand on 5 pillars: smarter policy, skilled people, secure data systems, innovation at scale, and finance that unlocks deployment. But this mission is not just about technology. It is about people. Citizens who understand their energy use, optimize their bills, participate in electricity markets, become producers, not just consumers. A citizen-centric power system is more efficient, more resilient, and fairer. The coming decade will define the future of global energy. Collaboration today will determine affordability, security, and sustainability for generations. The technology is ready. The opportunity is clear. This is the moment for a global mission for AI for energy. And the time to act is now.
I now invite Ms. Arushi Chopra, Senior Director, Systemic, to make her presentation on the report, please.
Hi, everyone, and really delighted to be launching this report here today with you all. solar growth has been outstripping all projections made to date. Wind has been rising rapidly. So as we know, generation is no longer the bottleneck. The grid is. And this grid was built for a linear world, right? There's concentrated power, there are unidirectional flows, but that world has now changed. And the system that we now live in is dynamic. So upstream, you'll see that generation is now intermittent and decentralized. And downstream, you'll see that demand is being reshaped by heat waves, electric vehicles, data centers, right? We're living in a new dynamic system now. But the grid is not dynamic, right? The grid is linear. And therefore, that's the mismatch of the energy transition. The good news is that digitalization can turn the grid from passive infrastructure into something that's truly intelligent and autonomous. And this report here really tries to set out what that intelligent energy system looks like and what does it take to build it. So we think of it as this digital ladder, if you like, right? At the very bottom of this digital ladder are, if you like, the ears and eyes of the energy system. This includes smart meters, sensors. They really help you build visibility. Then as you move to the blue rung, the second rung, if you like, these are almost like the arms and legs of your digital ladder, right, of the intelligent energy system. This helps you act on the data that has been collected in the bottommost layer. So take the example of, for example, if it's 6 p.m. and all electric vehicles have been plugged in at the same time, this will act on that data and smoothen the demand to ensure that the system doesn't fail. Then at the very top is effectively the brain of the energy system. This is not just reacting to the data that you get, but proactively anticipating what's going to happen in the future. So it almost helps you predict and look ahead. So based on, let's say, temperature readings today, it might help you predict is the same rung, right? Not every country is actually operating at the same level. So what we've done is, if we move to the next page, we'll see that there are effectively, if you move to the next page, we'll see that there are effectively 4 different archetypes of countries that we look at, right? And if you look at certain high-income countries, for example, if you look at the United Kingdom, right? Here, they already have visibility in place. Now, it's about optimization, right? Their challenge is optimization. So take a winter evening in Britain. Demand surges at home as everyone turns on their heating. Now, in a traditional system, that would mean that further grid build-out is needed, and that would mean more cost. But in an intelligent system, that doesn't happen, right? The system is optimizing itself. So it's really going to turn on storage. It's going to ensure that demand reshapes itself, and there's forecasting built into the dynamic. So that's what it's going to do in the UK, system-level optimization. But if you look at low-income countries, let's say, there it's primarily about visibility, right? Where is it that energy is coming from? In what direction is it flowing? Is it being lost? Are people paying for it? Those are the kind of questions that are being answered, that are being asked in lower income countries. So we looked at the use case of Ghana, really, right? And in Ghana, what we saw was that putting smart prepaid meters is what actually reduced theft and billing gaps. And consumption rose by 13%. So that's the power of customized use cases depending on the country you find yourself in. And if you look across all of these 4 different archetypes, the technological and investment pathways are different. And that's what this report documents, in addition to, of course, all the use cases. So in conclusion, what I would like to say is the technology is already here. The use cases are already proven. And our report brings up several of these, showing the value that is going to be generated for the system and for the consumer. Now, what will determine success is execution. And that's what this report launches. It'll be talked about later as well, the global mission to really make this a reality and execute seamlessly across the 125 ISA countries. So the linear grid is what effectively built the last 100 years. But the next 100 will be built on an intelligent grid. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arushi. Please, will you stay on stage with us? And I'm going to invite Karan Mangotra Ms. Shweta Ravi Kumar and Ms. Nidhi Sareen from GAP to please join us on the stage for the formal unveiling of the report. The panelists, may I please request you to please come in front. Ladies and gentlemen, the proud moment for ISA and all our partners who have been working very hard to put this report together. A big round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen. The report can be downloaded from the International Solar Alliance website. Thank you, dignitaries. We begin our next segment with a look inside the heart of the power system, the distribution utilities that are driving digital transformation on the ground. I now invite Ms. Aarti Dogra, Chairperson DISCOMS and Managing Director, Jaipur Vidyut Vitran Nigam Limited, to please make her presentation. Over to you, ma'am.
Good evening. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here. To start with, my understanding of conversations around AI usually center around details on algorithms and compute power. But when we talk about AI for infrastructure sectors, for a distribution utility, I think the question that we should be asking ourselves, what are the problems, what are the challenges that we expect or hope to solve through the use of AI? One such challenge to my memory, to most of our memories, would have been the blackout that India faced in 2012. Now, that was not a problem essentially of generation. That was a problem of the distribution utilities failing to anticipate, failing to see, failing to respond in time to a situation. And I think that essentially is what we need to be dealing with now. If we fast forward to the present, peak demand in India has crossed 250 gigawatts. Renewable power is not on the margins anymore, and grids are getting increasingly decentralized. So our problems or our issues, our challenges are not so much just the scale, but the entire complexity of issues that we need to take a look at. And when we started to work on the digital twin, I think what we were looking at was how do we integrate the huge amount of distributed renewable energy that we were seeing in Rajasthan. And this was an imperative for us because many of you may be familiar with the fact that Rajasthan has the dubious distinction of having one of the highest losses for the DISCOMs in the country. And to counter those losses, distributed renewable energy was essential for us. So we had to build that in, and we were working on building a system that was not so reactive, more predictive, and essentially not a pilot. As was mentioned earlier, I've always been saying that we did not want to build a pilot. We wanted it at scale, and we wanted, now the main thing, we wanted to embed it into our daily operations. And that is how we derived, with the help of GAP, the digital twin that I'm going to, and the story that I'm going to be talking to you about. So, like I said, very high level of losses. Our grid remains, has its own brand of seasonal variations. We supply more to agriculture than possibly any of the discoms in the country because of the geographical necessities of the landscape of Rajasthan. And so we had our inherent challenges. But for a distribution utility for Jaipur Discom, what should our priorities have been? Better services to the consumers, reducing losses, as well as building a grid that had reliability built into it. Keeping these things in mind, if you took a look at what our engineers have been doing over the years and what they continue to do, for most of the time, our engineers are firefighting, either offering explanations for events that have happened, or spending most of their time building huge estimates and largely, even to release small connections, just spending most of their time building estimates. So our first challenge therein was to build the GIS network for Jaipur Discom. And that's something we've been grappling with for the last almost a decade as far as I can remember. And thanks to GAP, we were able to do this around, like you can see in the slide, about 91,000 11 kV feeders, 1,300 33 kV feeders. We've managed to map 3 lakh DTs, 3 lakh plus distribution transformers through GIS, all within the short span of 1 year. And this was our basic layer to work with. Our second challenge was yet to come. Shweta spoke about it briefly. The fact that we have in the energy sector been able to build multiple dashboards. And we have dashboards for our DT metering, we have dashboards for our feeder metering, we have dashboards for, now we're working on smart meters, we had dashboards for our billing, we had dashboards for our renewable energy, we had all of that. But unfortunately, they were all in silos. None of them were talking to each other. It was a challenge to get them to integrate APIs, and the bigger challenge than in API integration was getting the vendors to talk to each other. So once we put all that together, I think that in itself, getting all these people to come together, getting all these APIs together, after that then the AI part becomes a little easier. The first 2 challenges, I think, were the bigger ones to surmount. Right now, I think in PM Kusum, we just crossed 3,000 megawatts of commissioned power in PM Kusum, under Kusum A and Kusum C. And as we go along towards the end of the year, we're hoping to reach 10,000 megawatts of commissioned plants. So essentially, we were also in a hurry to get it all done, so that not only were we able to see what was happening, we were also able to see how power was flowing across the DISCOM. Next. So I think by and large, we know the benefits and the leveraging that we could do from all of this. Of course, we know what kind of impact it would have, helping us to literally pinpoint where our losses are, highlight which of our distribution transformers were stressed, ready to burn out at any given point of time within the agricultural season, pointing out how much our outages were costing us. So we had a fairly good idea of what impact it was going to have. But I think our challenge later, after we did all this, was to bring it all into a kind of system where the use cases all came together. Next. We've covered about 11 out of our 18 circles. That's equivalent to a district. And when we started working on the use cases, we picked on a district or a circle by the name of Kotputli, which is about 2 hours from Jaipur. It is one of our high-loss circles. Lots of theft, some urban, peri-urban, rural areas, high amount of agriculture. So it represented for us a completely holistic kind of a circle where we could try out all our use cases. And along with the fact that we did all the pinpointing of DTs where the loss was coming from. What essentially worked for me is the fact that we could rope in our junior engineers and our linemen. Today, 324 linemen are working in Kotputli on this model. And to me, that essentially is our biggest achievement, because most of us build dashboards in isolation, and those dashboards are meant for the top layer of management. It is imperative that your lowest level of field functionary, the lineman, starts to use all of this. That is when all of it will come together. And may I point out that when I first interacted with these 324 linemen, 50% of them did not use Google Maps. That was the question I asked them. How many of you use Google Maps? 50% did not use Google Maps. So we are talking about that transition, and that makes the whole thing a little more workable, that the whole model must be built in such a way, must be fed into your daily operations, so much so that your lineman finds it easy to do his or her work through the use of this model, or the use of AI, or the use of the system. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, interoperability is important. Yes, predictability from the model is important. But as the MD of a distribution utility, for me, it's imperative that everybody within the system should be able to use it. It should be fed into their daily work profile, their daily work management, and they should get that feeling that it's making work easier for them. Of course, at the end of the day, once we start using it for release of connections, once we start using it for outage management, once we start using it for highlighting which of our distribution transformers are stressed, you're also going to be able to derive a political input from it, because you're going to be able to deliver your services, your consumer services, much more effectively. And any model of AI, as far as I'm concerned, that comes into the system, and definitely for the digital twin, as I see it, and as we are using it, must be built in such a way that each aspect, each worker of the DISCOM derives a utility from it. Thank you.
Our next presentation in this segment is by Mr. Abhishek Ranjan, CEO, BSES Rajdhani Power Limited. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Aarti, and good evening, everyone. Thanks, ISA, for this opportunity. Next 5 minutes, AI for all, people, planet, progress is the theme. So rather than speaking, we should experience AI, and we, the DISCOMs, stand at the sweet spot between the grid and the consumer. So the consumers are the end consumers of AI and any services that we offer. So over a period of last 23 years, what has happened is the losses came down from 60 to 6. The green share in the power has surpassed and went up to almost 50% of our capacity, that is PPAs. And then the technology has not been left behind. So, and we will see what is going to be the next. What's next? So losses have come down. The expectations of delights, we are a truly urban DISCOM. So the expectations are very, very high. The power cuts, today it is less than 3 numbers of per consumer per year, should be below 1. Minimum minutes of power cuts from 120 to 60. Restoration time from 45 to less than 30. Transformer breakdown from 0.53 to 0.25%. Now, these statistics can be derived only once we have a huge investment in the technology, and that is AI driven. Let us see. I mean, I'm trying to give you 4 flavors of AI applications which is happening. First is your digital twin. So as Aarti was talking about digital twin in Jaipur, a very large area, here we did it in a very smaller area. In fact, we are serving, BSES is serving about 2/3 of Delhi. Okay, so in this area, we converted that, and the results are there to see. The outage restoration time slashed by 50% only in 3 months. And now the peak summer coming up, we would see more benefits from such conversion to the digital twin. uninterrupted quality power supply, faster new connections for the solar rooftop or EV and electricity, and proactive network planning by AI-powered load flows in the low voltage. This is below the distribution transformer up till the last mile consumer meter. Next is bottom-up feeder modeling, AI-based prediction. What we are trying to do is we are now having layers of weather models which is localized to that particular lat long in the area. And then trying to run the load flows in that area, doing the prediction at the 11 kV while taking into consideration the weather forecast as well. And this is going to help not only in power purchase cost optimization, but also in reliability, ensuring lower SAIDI and SAIF. This is how we touch people. This just started where the people, before applying for the connection, they can themselves check whether it is feasible technically in their area or not. This is going to be rolled out soon with the approval of the commission, where they can simply give certain 1, 2, 3 inputs, and then within few minutes, it is going to be done. So digital twinning, LiDAR, and using LiDAR survey, as well as sensors across the line, helping us in doing this, right from the customer point where they want to have the connection from the source, right? Everything is there. For example, it is generating a bill of material. So for the customer, it is, yes, it is a go or a no-go in a minute. And for the utility behind us, it also gives us the bill of quantity, materials, and therefore you plan to, what is the end result? From say 3 to 4 days to 24 hours of release of a new connection. Again, a customer delight. This is asset side, drone-based, AI-based platforms. Drone captures imagery, satellite imagery, and you are able to pinpoint exactly and prioritize what all things are there. Now this is being done in distribution grid, 11 kV, 33 kV, as well as distribution level as well. Last but not the least, QR code we launched a long time ago. So you can scan the QR code and avail so many services, doorstep services, mobile step services. But now if somebody is not that tech savvy, he can simply talk to the human bot. Okay, this would be across the customer care centers wherever you walk in, or maybe even you can invoke through the customer app in real time. So yes, we are going ahead, touching the lives of the customer, using AI so that the customers experience AI. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Dogra and Mr. Ranjan, for those grounded insights. I now invite Mr. Sujit Nair, CEO and co-founder FIDE, for a presentation on digital energy grids.
I think the slides would be coming up, but thank you, Director General, Karan, the whole ISA team, of course, REC and others to have me here. I know in the interest of time, I'll probably not do the slides, but probably share 3, 4 perspectives based on what we just heard today in the last 1 hour. Firstly, I think one of the things about AI, I'm sure the AI Summit will bring that conversation, surface that conversation a lot more, is that even now AI is a lot of what appears to be a supply-side hysteria, waiting to be really emerge as demand-side gains. And that's a journey that's in front of us. And I hope in the times to come, with all emerging technologies, we have seen that. We have seen the dot-com boom of the whole excitement, euphoria around internet, and that went through a certain slope before we caught up and have a trillion digital economy, which is bigger than many countries today. I'm pretty sure that with technologies like AI, the demand side value will start showing up as much as we see as the supply side. Of course, models are getting better, cheaper, costlier, bigger, of course. But I think the real problem, the real question in front of us is how do we translate them into demand side gains? And to talk about demand side gains, I think this picture puts a few things in perspective. And I'm trying to inspire, I'm a technologist, I see myself as a digital plumber, by no means an energy expert, but when I looked at energy systems as an engineer, trained engineer myself, I see this very contrast. If you look at the grid, it follows the laws of physics, the Kirchhoff's laws. It's one unified grid. We never built one grid for light bulbs, another grid for toasters, another grid for washing machines. We built one grid. It's one unified grid all the time. But when it comes to digital systems, it's almost like we're literally building a road for every car. The digital systems have been built in silos, built independently, and very few times we brought them to talk to each other. In fact, interoperability has always been an afterthought, not a design from the day one as a latent feature of the design. And that's one of the questions that made us wonder about this thought about digital energy grid. And the question we were asking about last year, same time, February last year, is that does energy coordination, especially with things we heard today, with the grid being decentralized and more assets getting created outside of the control of the utility companies, outside of DISCOMs, especially we are the grid, because we are the ones that are bringing load to the grid as always, but we're also bringing rooftop solars and everything as citizens, as humans, as general consumers and prosumers. We are becoming the grid because most of the assets are going to be controlled by us. If you do this, it's a geometric progression of growth that consumers are bringing more assets than what DISCOMs have been deploying, what constituted as a formal grid. In that world, I think, is there a need for DPI? That was the question to digital energy grid. I'm so happy, it's so heartening to see Shweta present about India Energy Stack, and as a member of the task force, I really saw value in doing that. And we talk about this, and to put this perspective in AI. AI seems to be like a double burden. It's another engineering system that's coming in place. We are looking at the sophisticated learning models coming in, and we just don't know how to bring them together. And this is where combining digital, electrical, and the learning models together requires a unifying coordination infrastructure. And we've learned that from the likes of the designs of internet, emails, telecom. You know, I don't need to, just because you're using Gmail, I don't have to use Gmail to receive email from you. It's all interoperable. That's how civilization scale systems like emails, internet, telecom has been designed. We think that opportunity with India Energy Stack, based on the principles of some of the principles of digital energy grid, is ushering that thought. And we think that is necessary to move AI from a supply side, sort of an excitement, to demand side value. And when you have to move to demand side value, you got to solve for three fundamental things, as we have learned from population scale DPI work we have done. We spoke about UPI a little while. All the work that we have done fundamentally leads to three things. How do you solve for verifiability, trust, and coordination at scale? And how do we do it at scale? Because that's the question we're asking in India. One is to scale what works, the other is to see what works at scale. How do we do it? If the marginal cost of moving money has become zero because of UPI, can the marginal cost of moving inferencing to a lineman, as Ms. Dogra was explaining, can a lineman find it absolutely easy to use AI? If you want to do that, you need to build open rails. You need to build India Energy Stack like open rails and keep it minimal. It is necessary, it will never be sufficient, but it's the critical necessary that actually makes adoption happen. And that's the part, I am actually pretty surprised with the progress we have made in India Energy Stack in just a few months. Just to quote put things in perspective on speed, on January 9th, we thought, is it possible, with whatever little we have built of India Energy Stack, and that's still a work in progress, possible for us to build an ecosystem, a tech ecosystem, that can think of what seems to be unthinkable, which is me maybe selling energy to Shweta. We're from two different cities, literally selling as people, selling energy. It's a stress test of this coordination. It may not be by itself a market design that we may want to pursue formally, but it makes people an active participant in a very complex energy interaction. Can we elevate with AI a common man to the level of a junior engineer in a grid to find it very easy to interact and sell energy using the underlying elements? And what was remarkable in that journey so far, from all the use cases we've been receiving and learning about, is that it fundamentally comes down to the very few building blocks. Shweta had only 5 building blocks to show on the slides. That minimalism is absolutely critical, especially if you're talking about capacity constraints in the institutions, in the utilities, across Global South, capital constraints. You have to reduce the surface area of investment and achieve exponential growth. So I don't know if that was registered well, so I'm going to make you recall that slide that Shweta presented. Just 5 building blocks to unlock population scale transformation from peer-to-peer trading, demand flexibility, regulatory reporting, to EV charging, and so much more, all coming from literally 5 elements in that periodic table. And that's the powerful vision of India Energy Stack. I would like you all to carry back and see what does it mean to raise the ground for common people to participate in this new digital economy and give them the agency. And it's also a bit unfair for the DISCOMs to be solving for the energy transition themselves. It is all upon us, the whole ecosystem, to come together, work with DISCOMs to make it happen, but it'll be tad unfair to say if most of the assets are outside of DISCOM's control, beyond their observability control. I mean, I keep saying that. You're buying an EV vehicle today, it's great, but if you all are coming at 7 o'clock and charging it, you're literally melting the grid. I mean, for all the good use of green, you're actually causing more stress to the grid. So we all have to work in that coordination. And as an ecosystem, if we can reduce the coordination cost and convert it into coordination dividend, then we are looking at a future of energy which can harness AI, digital infrastructure, make it much better, inclusive, and much more reliable, and leaves nobody behind. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nair. To complement these perspectives, we now invite a global systems view on scaling impact. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Jeremy Oppenheim, Managing Partner, Systemic. Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you all for staying on for the last piece of this, and it's been an extraordinary session so far, and it's a great honor to be here on the stage. I just want to, without slides for once, just share a small number of messages with everybody, and I'm going to build off what has already been said. We are in the midst of two great revolutions in the world at the moment, and it's described in the report, but the two great revolutions that we are working our way on are, number one, a revolution in digitization, and through that to the world of artificial intelligence. And second is a revolution that is not fully understood, nor is the AI one, but in the space of energy. And at its very core is one simple idea, which is that we will be building over the next 20, 30 years an energy system that moves from one in which electricity is 20% of final energy consumption to a world in which electricity represents north of 60 or 70% of final energy consumption. That is essential, right? Because if we want to continue to grow the world economy, to do so with affordable energy, and to do so within planetary boundaries, there is no version of the world that does it with molecules and with today's fossil, if you will, based energy system. It is an energy system that will be based ever more on electrification. And that electrification will be based ever more on forms of renewable energy and all the various energy assets that have been described over the course of the session this afternoon. That is the future of the energy system. That is what will underpin, for a country like India, 8% growth a year for the next decade or two, because without energy there will not be, if you will, the scale of growth that countries across the global south require. And without the electrification of the energy system, we won't see any of this playing out. And at the heart of a successful story of moving from an energy system which is about 20% of electricity in final energy consumption to one that is 60% or more over the next 25 or 30 years, without AI and without the intersect between AI and electricity, we will not get there. Full stop. So what is going on here and what is being described in this session is central to the growth story and the prosperity story, as well as the energy and AI story. So I just want to anchor this in the core, if you will, nation building and economic development story of countries across the South, not least India. So that's observation one. Observation two, very simply, is that as we look to the cost of building an energy system that is fit for the future, that meets our tests, right, of electrifying, doing it cleanly, making it affordable for more and more people across the world to be able to consume energy at the level that they need to raise their standard of living. There are huge numbers in terms of the investment costs. And just to put a high-level number, and it's described in the report, and it comes from the IEA and the work we do at Systemic within the Energy Transition Commission, we're talking about across the world about $50 trillion of investment over the next couple of decades. And on the one hand, that sounds like a huge number, an absolutely huge number, but think of it as 1.5% to 2% of GDP invested in the underlying enablement of economic growth, right? It's not an insane number. It is entirely affordable. However, if we're going to do it well, we're going to have to do it intelligently. And one of the biggest things that introducing AI at scale, not at pilot level, right, but at the right level, which is the system level, into that investment program, it is going to save us somewhere between, we say 5 to 10%, I think that's conservative. I think we will end up saving a lot more than that, because it's not just the capital costs, it will be many operating costs in the system. And you heard the description even today of improved, if you will, or reduced loss rates. The efficiency gain that we will capture through bringing AI into the energy system, and specifically into the electrification of our energy system, is staggering, and it is essential to making it affordable. So electrification of the energy system as the underpinning of growth. AI meets electrification, because without that, we will not get the system to work, particularly not with the distributed energy assets, and we won't get the economics of it to work because we need to drive up the operating efficiency of the system as a whole, and we need to drive up the capital productivity of the system as a whole, and AI is central to that. And then the third piece, which everyone's spoken to, and I just want to reinforce in my final kind of message, is you can get lost in the bits and the bytes and the technicalities of this. I get lost in it. It comes down to people, right? And it comes down to people trusting that this system is actually going to deliver benefits for them. And that's a range of different actors. So it is the workers and the people that work in the system. It's not, I know we talk a lot about consumers and prosumers and all the other actors, but I think the people who are actually at the heart of making the system work need to feel that this is a place where actually the possibilities for them as engineers, as workers in the field, as technicians, right, all of that scales and all of that develops, that this is an exciting future, right, and that they can be part of. I think there's multiple other actors, if you will, in the circle around that, but in the end, this has got to be a system that people trust, right? It cannot feel like it's just a black box where we are, you don't know from one day to the next how it's working and how it's governed. And at the core of that are two very simple ideas. One is captured so beautifully by your Prime Minister, who does a phenomenal job of bringing it down to ensuring that this is, if you will, citizen-centric. Right? I wish we had a bit more of that in my own country. So making sure that there are real benefits that people across the country can experience. And then second is just making sure that there are mechanisms that create real trust. Right? Because when we trust things, then they can scale and they can grow and they get way beyond the pilot and all sorts of things happen. And when we don't trust things, it creates all sorts of dysfunctionality, right? And when the system grows wrong, and there will be mistakes that we'll make along the way, if there isn't that trust, it will then undermine the progress that's possible. So enormous opportunity. And without this, we will not have the economic growth and prosperity and the distribution of that we all want to see. At the heart of this is the intersect between electrification and AI, and the extraordinary potential I think AI does have to drive capital and operational efficiency, but right at the heart is people and trust and the benefits that citizens can capture from what I think will be a dual revolution over the next 20 years, with India right at the heart of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oppenheim, for bringing a global lens to this rapidly evolving space. To bring it all together and outline the path forward for the mission, it is my honor to invite Mr. Ashish Khanna, Director General, International Solar Alliance, for his concluding remarks.
Well, it's 6:05, 25 minutes over. And if you are feeling either phew or wow or a combination of both, you're not alone. I think, as you can imagine, this requires a very deep technical expertise on AI, whether it's the Beacon Protocol, Sujit, whether it is a practitioner on what's happening on the ground with Aarti and Abhishek, global perspectives of what is coming from Jeremy and Henry and Himang, or what's happening in India. This requires everyone together. And some of it will be doing by learning. We believe at low cost, scale, and development impact, the timing is now. You've heard it, whether it is on the scale, what you can do for finance. At International Solar Alliance, we believe the 5 pillars, which is about how do we take India Energy Stack as India's gift to the world, but also take what else others are doing, which can be incorporated as part of the journey. Policy and regulations will be central. In terms of capacity, we are launching an ISA Academy, which will be an AI tool to train the electrical engineers on AI and AI engineers on electricity. That's heart of what the new jobs will be. Third, all the use cases will require interoperability. You will need a global institution that acts as a platform to coordinate among all the countries. I believe International Solar Alliance can play a very important role working with everyone else so that there are interoperable standards to take this to the world. Finally, a lot more innovation. Lot of innovation with startups is already happening, but a lot more of 1,000 flowers ready to be bloom is there. And all of this will require to be citizen-centric and some de-risking. That is also a role that we will be very happy to create. Lot more decentralized renewable energy, lot more power to all of you. Please stay connected, and this is just a start of the day. Read the Global AI Mission for Energy, but we are really looking forward. We have at least 5-6 countries and 3 utilities in India that have already evinced interest in doing this. Thank you very much, and please give a big round of applause to the panel. May I request maybe a quick photograph, and we are already late. Thank you very much for staying late.
Thank you, sir, for the closing remarks and for setting out a clear path ahead. On behalf of the International Solar Alliance and our partners, thank you for joining us today. Beginning tomorrow, we invite you to visit the ISA Pavilion in Hall 14 to learn more about the mission and continue the conversation. Thank you.
Also, a big thanks to Karan Mangotra, Aarti, Arushi, and everyone else for holding this session. Thank you very much.